All right, we're going to get started. 7:15. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. It is 7:15. First is flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call.
Okay. Ms. Bolenbacher?
Here.
Mr. Chandler? Here. Ms. Compatello?
Here.
Mr. Marks?
Here.
Mr. Oliverio?
Here.
Mr. Radilla?
Here.
Mayor Perry?
Here.
Solicitor Corbel? Engineer Minsterman?
Here.
And myself, we have a quorum.
Great. So the consent agenda, first is the approval of the minutes of the December 8th, 2022 meeting, and also the bill list, ratifying the December 31st bill list and approving the bill list from today, which is January 2nd, 2023. The motion to approve the January 12th, 2023 consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Radilla, Ms. Bolenbacher. Any discussion? These were all on the OneDrive. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, public comments on agenda items. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please state your name and physical address for the record. Do we have anybody signed in? No sign-ins? Okay, anybody online? Please raise your hand. All right. No public comments. All right, the president's report. So we have some very exciting news. We went through a process for the hiring of the borough manager. We had talked about this back in August. So Doug Sample has been our interim borough manager for over 2 years now. And we went through the executive search process. We used the Bradley partnerships. It was a national search. We had 250 contacts. We had 80 diverse candidates and eventually down to 10 candidates. And finally, we selected one candidate, which we'll talk about tonight. The candidate pool was large, lots of really good folks. There was a portion of the process that we went through is working with the executive search firm. We went through and had interviewed folks. So there was a smaller subset of council that went through the first round of interviews. The mayor and myself met with candidates for dinner. And then after that, the entire council met in executive session to interview candidates. So with that, we found a candidate. His name is Jim Price, and he's here tonight. He has worked for Sustainable Pittsburgh for the past 7 years. He's worked for Connect, Penn Future, and Overland, and also the Borough of Etna. He comes with a great education from Cleveland State and master's degree from the University of Pittsburgh. And he lives in Carnegie, Scott Township area. So he has a really strong background. And as we move Crafton forward, we want to recommend him as our next borough manager, effective on January 23rd. He is obviously still with Sustainable Pittsburgh, but has joined us tonight for the vote by council. So looking for a motion to hire Jim Price as the borough manager to commence on January 23rd, 2023, and to authorize the president of council to execute the memorandum of employment, which outlines the terms and conditions of Mr. Price's employment. And to state that all borough managers for Crafton have a contract that is for 2 years. And during the reorganization meeting each January, that contract is voted on. So this contract will be for 1 year.
So moved.
Mr. Chandler?
Second.
Ms. Compitello. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Price. Would you like to say anything?
I would just like to thank the board for the opportunity and looking forward to the meeting.
Great, great. Thank you. Glad to have you. And also, so for Mr. Sample, I do want to acknowledge, he started here as assistant borough manager, has been interim longer than I think he was the assistant borough manager, and he will go back to being assistant borough manager now. So that's the role, but to acknowledge all your support through my first year term and prior. So thank you.
Welcome. I'm looking forward to working with Jim.
Yes, and Jim's already been helping to get integrated, so that's good. All right, mayor's report.
I have nothing to add this evening.
All right, and it's been a month since our meeting, so just a reminder, please make sure to hit your mic so the folks on Zoom can hear. Engineers report, Mr. Minsterman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, nothing to add to the submitted engineers report.
All right, great, thank you. Solicitors report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Couple quick item, thanks. Just two updates, the fireworks ordinance and the uniform construction code ordinance, they have both been advertised and will be up for consideration at the next meeting. And secondly, I wanted to announce that on January 3rd, council held an executive session regarding personnel items on January 3rd of this year. And then also we will have a executive session following the meeting tonight to discuss personnel issues. No action is expected at that time. And that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you. Great. Yeah, that's all yours. Managers report, Mr. Sam.
Nothing further to add to the written report that was submitted.
Great. All right, standing committee reports. Finance and Administration, Ms. Perry.
We have a motion, or we'll be seeking a motion for real estate and road tax refunds. So these are property and road tax refunds for property assessments that were reduced because of appeals. And that the motion we're seeking is to ratify payment of the 2021-2022 real estate and road tax refunds in the amount of $1,475.73 as presented and submitted by Jordan Tax Services.
So moved.
Mr. Rodilla. Ms. Bolenbacher. Any discussion? Right, take it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Perry, anything else? All right.
That looks like it tonight.
Challenges with the mic. It's New Year. All right, Community Services and Infrastructure, Ms. Compitello.
All right, well, I have some updates tonight. First item on our agenda is the multi-municipal zoning project update. Crafton has been in the process of doing a zoning project update that we have been collaborating on with Ingram. We have a consultant that's doing a multi-municipal process, which just means that they're being done together somewhat collaboratively, but we are each coming out with our own zoning update. There are no major updates on this. I have been pressing our consultant to set schedule dates for what the next steps will be. They do owe us a round of public engagement. So we're trying to establish those dates and then be able to share them with the community. But in the meantime, they are working on doing a first draft of the code rewrite. And I did want to share with the community, there is an event this weekend. It is not borough sponsored, but members of the Planning Commission will be at, it is the Fig Cafe is the name.
Fig Tree.
Fig
Coffee.
Tree. It is 1931 Crafton Boulevard. There will be a display with some members of the Planning Commission there starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure how long The planning commission will be able to stay, but at least from 10 to noon or so, there will be a table with printouts of the diagnostic summary that was completed in the fall, the first stage of that zoning project. There will be myself and another planning commission member there interchangeably, who will be able to answer any community questions. And we'll also have a copy of our comprehensive plan that will be printed out. So if any residents have questions or would like to come and talk to us about the status of that zoning update or other planning commission initiatives or ideas, please stop by and see us. Second update for my committee is about the Bradford Avenue stop sign installation. This has been discussed at several meetings going into the end of 2022. We are finally getting close to installing that stop sign. The intersection of Crafton Boulevard and Bradford Avenue will become a three-way stop, and that new stop sign on Bradford Avenue will be installed. The anticipated date is next Wednesday, the 18th of January. There will be a savvy citizen notice, and the new stop sign will be accompanied by flashing lights during that initial phase to make sure that residents and drivers can become accustomed to the new travel pattern. Third item on the agenda, we have some very good news. We submitted a grant request last year, and we recently received notice that we were awarded these funds, a very sizable grant that we got through the support of Connor Lamb at the end of his tenure. It's a community project funding grant, and we were awarded over $991,000. Specifically $991,758. We had requested this grant to apply towards our Broadhead Avenue separation project. So we're very happy that we've been awarded almost $1 million for that project. We had also previously been awarded funding through Alcosan for that project as well. We've announced in the fall we got less money from Alcosan than we were hoping for. So this new funding source that we won with the support of Connor Lamb will help us go further on that project and help us make up some of the additional funds we're hoping to gain. We are still continuing to pursue additional grant sources so that we can cover the entire cost of that project, if at all possible. We're trying to reduce our borough contribution.
Ms. Comptella, what's the delta between that for the public? Is it 3 million?
It was around 3 million.
3.7 was awarded through Alcosan. We've got the other million. So 4.7, and it's roughly a $7 million project.
So applying for additional grants for that 3 million.
Right. We had applied for $7,654,232 with Alcosan, and we were awarded $3,738,400. So we have several more million we would like to raise. We just got almost $1 million thanks to Connor Lamb. We're continuing to look for additional grant sources. And then the final update from me is about our master park plan. This one has been somewhat delayed. Many of our community members may remember that we completed a master park plan in March of 2020. It was a process that began in the fall of 2021. We had a number of community residents who were on the steering committee. We had some really good support during council meetings from residents who came. It was completed in March of 2022, and it was submitted to the state for their review. This was a parks plan that was done with state funding from DCNR, and it had to be submitted to them upon completion for review and approval before it comes back to council to approve. State has had it for almost a year, and we are very happy to announce we expect that it will be approved any day now. And so we have been assured we're getting it any day now. So we are advertising starting now for the consideration for that master park plan to be adopted at our February 9th council meeting. It's kind of a mouthful, but the big news is we expect it will be adopted finally February 9th. And that is all for me.
Right, great, thank you. Great. Communication, recreation, community events, Mr. Marks.
No updates from my committee tonight. We meet again for the first time this year next week. So.
Great. All right, commission vacancy, Mr. Chandler, long list now.
Yes, we've had quite a few open up this year. So with that, we do have a couple new spots that have opened up. We, in addition to the Planning Commission and other members, will be at the Fig Tree Coffee on Saturday for, I believe, most of the time that it's available. If anybody wants to come and discuss any of the open positions, we'd be glad to do so. With that, we have still a civil service alternate position, a seat on the library board, one zoning hearing board, and one zoning hearing board alternate. And upcoming for this year, at the beginning of February, we will have a civil service alternate. We will have a planning commission alternate, or I'm sorry, a planning commission in February. Or I'm sorry, April. And Shade Tree Commission, we will have a seat opening up in March, and then 3 opening up for the rec board at the end of the year. I know that's a long time away, but it's still a good time to start thinking about it. And that's all that I have, other than if anybody is interested in applying for any of these open seats or any upcoming seats, please do so at craftonborough.com/commissions.
Great. Thank you. All right, Council of Government, Mr. Liddell.
Hello, I have no update at this time. Thank you.
Thanks. And as we look at the folks that are in charge of this, as we're going to go into our council vacancy, there may be some reassignments to the leaderships of these various committees, starting with the filling of the council vacancy seat. All right, which brings us to the council vacancy. So a little update from our last meeting. Philip Lavasser's council seat expired on December 25th. He had resigned and the council seat expired that day. And we received his resignation on November 10th. So at that meeting, we heard from 2 of our 4 candidates who presented. We had 2 candidates that could not attend the December 8th meeting. And the council decision at that time was to delay any type of decision until this meeting when the other candidates could present themselves. So for today's meeting, and what was agreed is, and our process again was that candidates had a certain period to apply to their meeting or to the for a seat online. They come to council, they present for 5 minutes. Then there's a Q&A after for council members and that candidate, and then council would vote on the candidates through a roll call. That person would be sworn in this time. So for tonight, we would go in the order that we have here. So for the candidates that had presented before, you're free to present again. You are free to come up and say whatever you'd like. And for anybody else that you want to do, you have 5 minutes to do that. So we'll start first. Any questions by council? Oh, here. Oh, here. First one is Nathan Henry.
There we go. How's it going again?
Good.
Once again, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's fun to get up here and talk and, be able to sort of put myself out there. And it's a good learning lesson. So really, thank you. Yeah. So once again, I'm Nathan Henry, currently a 19-year-old who's a student at Chatham University. In the time that I have successfully been able to become a member of the Chatham's Women's Entrepreneurship Center. And so that's been a fun time. I've been able to attend a couple Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And they deal a lot with fundraising and getting money for they deal with any small entrepreneurship, but their focus is mainly on minorities and women in specific. And so that's been pretty eye-opening to do. And so that's something I'd like to share because I honestly think that's a huge step in the right direction. And I would love to sort of bring that aspect here to Crafton. Other than that, there's not been too terribly much different. I've had the chance to look over some of the Pennsylvania's state government education that they have for when you're elected to positions as such. And there's nothing that really was out of my scope of knowledge. And so that was a really good plus to know that I would be able to function in a good capacity. And I want that to be let know. But other than that, I'm open to questions.
Great, thank you. So for council, it is our turn now to ask any questions of Mr. Henry.
I think one of the questions we asked last time, I don't think you had an answer for, so I'm just gonna ask it again to see if it happened.
Go ahead.
Since we are a new council.
Yep.
We are 1 year in. I was curious if you see any glaring issues that you can see that we have or have not done and what you think you can do to assist in helping those.
Absolutely. And I think the issues that people find and have, they change. You know, I think the first thing you're told in a marketing class is that the customer is always different. The customer always changes and their habits and demands are always different. And that's the same exact thing for every constituent you have. There may not be problems now, but problems could arise later. And I'm prepared to deal with that. And I'm prepared to bring a new, you know, sort of younger look at things. And I think it's always good to have that other perspective. And I think I am here to provide that.
Great. Other questions?
You did attend in December, and so we asked questions already, but you mentioned something new this evening that you've been involved with that you'd like to, that you think you have ideas for how you might like to bring that here to Crafton. So I'd like to hear a little bit more on how you could see implementing something like that in
Oh,
Crafton.
absolutely. Yeah. So the cool part about the Chatham's Women Center for Entrepreneurship is that they're always looking to branch out and sort of put their foot wherever they can to help as many people as they can. And so working with them being one of the largest, I think, in the entire country for funding and for what they've currently done. And so I think my first step would be getting in contact. I'm already, you know, a member. And so getting in contact isn't that difficult. I have a couple of friends who are ahead of the board. And so that wouldn't be an issue. And then I think the next step is sort of working with the council and seeing what they want to do with it. I mean, if this is something that a commission would be like to put together for, or, you know, or I would just spearhead it myself. Either way, I think there's a lot that could be done, and it's something cool that I think I could bring here.
Any other questions?
Well, if there are no other new questions, we asked you this last time, but in the interest of just keeping things fresh for this evening, we had asked for you to state, you know, I don't remember what number we put, one to three at most, things that you might like to, priorities that you might have in implementing here in Crafton.
So I guess the first is probably one that I've been always passionate about, and it's like sort of the parks and recreation aspects of Crafton. I always love going for walks, and so it's always nice to have a new thing to see, new site to go and experience, something like that. And so I'm definitely really passionate about bringing as much as I can to Crafton when it comes to recreation, whether that's like a new park or like continuing on the plans that have already been put out by Crafton. And yeah, that would be one. And then the next, obviously, infrastructure is a big deal. I think getting specific things done and funded, as we've talked about, there's a lot to be funded. And so, yeah, I stand by all the projects that you guys have mentioned in the multiple meetings that I've been able to attend, and it's really nice. So that's another thing. And then always, you know, safety is a priority. And then although there might not be something to do right now or something that I've heard of right now, but keeping a check on that and making sure, everyone's living.
Great. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you so
Henry.
much for your time.
Okay. All right. Our next person, Pam Kalnick. All right.
Well, hi, everyone. Apologies for missing the last meeting. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself, jump right in, and then if you have questions, please throw them at me. I tend to make long stories, so I'll try to shorten it all up. Grew up Southwestern PA, a tiny little town on the map called Windridge. Pretty sure most people have not heard of it. Family roots are here in the Pittsburgh area. Bounced around a little bit as a kid, settled back here in, I'm aging myself here, guys, in '89. Went to Cal U, currently been renamed, spent the first half of my career in Washington, DC. Moved back here about 10 years ago where I decided to look for a home, looked at one house in a neighborhood I never heard of, which was Crafton, and I have been here 10 years and have loved every minute here in my neighborhood and of course in my lovely little house up on the hill. Currently, I work at a marketing agency just north of the city, but during the pandemic, like most folks, we totally pivoted and now we are fully remote. So I am up in that office all day, every day, and enjoy when the sun's out taking some strolls around our neighborhood. In the role that I'm in, very involved in event planning, a lot of fundraising work on behalf of our clients. That's what we do. But then just that passion for events carries over into like all of the personal things that I do on the side. But yeah, there's much more to it. I don't want to drag this out, but love my neighborhood, love where all the good things that we're doing. Feel like there's lots of wonderful events that we have throughout the year. I think there's about 5 of them that tend to always get a lot of attention. So like supporting and like being there for my community. So that's it in a nutshell.
Right. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Questions from council?
Okay, I've asked a similar question of everybody. I'd like to ask for we'll go with the same numbers, 1 to 3. Priorities for things you would like to focus on here if you were to be on council.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I was thinking about that as you were asking just a second ago. For me, I think it's one of those things of just being aware of what council is doing, right? So if that is a combination of the presence of communicating that out. So I know that we have, like I just mentioned, all these wonderful events that we're doing. So if that's a stronger social media presence, just amping that up a little bit more. I mean, I know I get the newsletter, I'm aware that we're having them, but who is the lead on that? I guess just that communicating of those events, because they're so great. So maybe trying to get more attendance into some of those when everyone is working so hard to have, the car show or the 4th of July, Crafton celebrates all of those events. So I think that's an area I think worth exploring, is just how to get those attendance and showcase more of what we're doing. Let's see. I don't want to steal the Parks and Rec idea of the walking. I'm a big fan of our parks. I know we have some good trails around here. So maybe amping those up more would be helpful. I think everyone, especially in the COVID times, was looking for any ways of being outside. So just maintaining the walks that we have, the trails that we have. One more. Because I live only a couple streets away, I'm always in the Blue Snail, Serafino's, Circle Inn, like walking along those ways. I love that it feels like there's a lot of energy in that section. So if there's a way, when you see some of they're not closed up storefronts, but just bringing more energy and life, maybe I'll call it into like a main street, whether that's encouraging potted flowers or painting bright doors, just sort of that sort of welcoming feeling on some of the buildings around town. Just 3 off the top of my head.
I was just gonna be standard as well. Do you think have you seen anything we've done as a council that you feel we could improve upon? And if so, what would be that improvement?
I don't want the answer to feel like I'm not thinking it through if I say no. And honestly, I think it's just because it's understanding fully what council's involvement is in all of the areas that I just said. When you have committees that put on events or committees that are a library one, like what involvement is that? So from my perspective, being here, I know you said it's a new council, but even the 10 years, I've never had a moment where I thought, man, I wish we were doing this. So I think that's a good gauge too. I've never felt that there's this dramatic need for this improvement. Either I live in a blissful little bubble where I'm unaware, or yeah. So I really actually don't have anything that jumps to the top of my mind where I'm like, we need to improve this. So.
Can you tell me about your participation so far with the community?
Mhm.
Because I know you were just recently elected to the rec board.
Mhm.
Maybe your experience with that or any other experience you've had.
Yeah, so coming from the place of we're saying yes to things, 2022, 2023, thought it was a great opportunity to utilize event planning skills and understanding the need for more volunteers when it comes to all of this. You can't pull off these great events if you don't have, I like to say, worker bees. So I think that is really how I see me in these roles is, I can have a voice and I can have my say, but I'm all about the participation on these things. So yes, we just had our first meeting. I thought it went well. You drive by the lights in Crafton Park during the holidays, and a lot of people probably don't know that it's just a committee that's doing those things. So just want to contribute and be a part of that. I've attended a lot of our events that we've had throughout the decade I've been here, and it's always pretty impressive how much work goes into those things. So when you have families or every age showing up, it's nice to see that you're checking all those boxes.
And what skills do you think you can bring to council?
I would just experience in working with a variety of people. I do it every day. I'm in client services at my agency. So being able to troubleshoot, the word we've all used way too much recently, being able to pivot, change ideas, being able to just go with the flow when things don't go your way, just trying to find troubleshoot solutions. A lot of event experience in multiple things, not only professionally, but also personally, just day-to-day stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've organized, it's not the same scale, but events for 200, 250 people downtown Pittsburgh for like a whole week-long company event. So just being able to troubleshoot problems, communicate what you're doing, having that presence. So anyone who is attending an event or being invited to a meeting is aware of what the logistics are. And I also just think communicating those things out. Again, you can be through an app, but I also think sometimes just having a person be able to speak to those things, it matters.
Okay, well, I have a question that builds on that, because you have recently joined the rec board, and that's wonderful to see. And you've talked about a lot of things that are really great fits for the rec board. But I wonder how what do you understand about what a council role would do as opposed to a seat on the rec board?
I think of the rec board, it's being an active participant, but the board isn't council. They're not, I don't want to say the decision makers. Someone is like the liaison between the two in my mind. So yeah, I know we have our goals that we're shooting for and what we're planning. But as John mentioned, I've only had one meeting so far, and that was Monday. But it was more of a conversation of what we're trying to achieve this year and how we're going to achieve it. So my understanding is the rec board is a committee. Yes, you apply and you're on it, but the council is a separate entity from that.
Their standard question that I've been asking everyone. Can you think of anything that you've seen in another municipality or another town that as council member, you would like to bring or emulate here? A program or an initiative or whatever it may be.
I'm trying to think of the neighborhood, neighborhoods that my friends live in, what they've done. One thing I've enjoyed in other communities would just be more, it's more tied into like a light up night, but almost like a holiday open house. Having more participation in businesses, and whether it's a walking tour or just having that involvement from other businesses. I know I've enjoyed those when I know Carnegie has had one. The town where my family's in, Waynesburg, they do a big holiday open house, and it's the same concept of all the businesses on Main Street with the lighting of the tree. I know we've got our light up night, but there might be something to explore in there. I just wonder which street it would be. That's the only thing.
Any additional questions? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Well, thank you
Kapta.
very much.
Okay. All right, next is Logan Drew. I think he is remote. Okay.
Say, I don't see him on Zoom.
All right, he did submit his application. You would have to look at it online for consideration, and there would be no Q&A. All right, Mr. Kraus.
Hello. So most of you already know me, so I'll take the time to introduce myself again. My name is Brad Kraus, and I served for 4 years here on the council, from 2018 to 2022. And I did speak in the December meeting, and I won't rehash everything that I said, but I will summarize it, and then I will open myself up for some questions. Just to kind of reiterate, I put my name into the hat here because I think that I have a record to stand on, and I have experience that I could help bring to this body. When I was on council for 4 years, I worked with our state and local partners. I worked with the Council of Governments, and I helped to work on some of the infrastructure plans here that we are taking advantage of. Worked with the zoning consultants, worked with Gateway engineers, helped Rick and guided Rick with some things here that we are seeing come to fruition, especially down at Crafton Boulevard. I helped to bring in the last 2 borough managers and keep the borough running smoothly during the COVID pandemic. We worked with our public works. I used to interact with the public works folks on the committee that I served on, and we helped to bring in 3 new trucks through our budgeting process and break ground on the public works facility. Also helped with the Shade Tree Commission to help the trees maintain their healthiness. We can still say we are a tree city USA. I worked with the fire department, worked with the school board. So I won't get into every single detail. What I would like to emphasize is that I do understand what it's like to work collaboratively in a legislative environment. I have the skill set. I've done the job for 4 years. I worked behind the scenes, on the floor. And my biggest accomplishment, my proudest accomplishment, is to help drive the narrative in the community and on the council to help bring in the infrastructure grant and the investment bond, the infrastructure bond that we have here, we're taking advantage of. Yeah, I mean, so I have done this and think that the experience that I can bring to bear is definitely an asset. And yeah, so I will open up for Q&A.
All right, thank you. Any questions, Mr. Kraus?
Kirsten, I see a question.
I asked Nathan to repeat his responses from the last time. I think it's good that we have them all kind of fresh in mind. So 1 to 3 of your priorities for what you would like to focus on or do if you were a council member.
Well, I mean, this is a 1-year gig, and it takes 4 people to tango. So I think, from my personal perspective, I do think that there's another story in the Crafton chapter that's yet to be written. And we've done a lot of what I always term as the cardiovascular work under the ground. We've done new sewers, we've done new infrastructure. Those are things we're desperately needed because we were, woefully behind in our infrastructure. And I think the next thing we need to do is to work with our local partners like Ingram, Green Tree to start to think about how to collaborate more effectively on services for the taxpayer, number one. I think eventually at some point in Allegheny County, there's going to be much more of a push towards the big C, which is consolidation. I'm not saying I'm for that or against that. I'm just saying, but in behind the scenes, I've learned that that is something that is going to have to be dealt with. And the faster communities can get out in front of that, the better position they might be in when that does come down the pike. That's number one. Number two, I think that we need to work with, after we do the zoning, the question then becomes, how can we leverage that into actual capital investment in the community? We have a shopping center that is that could probably be utilized in a different way. We have a business corridor that's a bit fragmented, but we have the parts to make something work, and we should be figuring out how to bring in. I mean, if we build it, will they actually come, or what's our role in actually bringing in the next phase? And then the third thing I think is important is to kind of talk about my first part, which was, or the infrastructure part, I should say, which is to continue the infrastructure improvements that we've already started. The Crafton Boulevard project is fantastic. And I think that needs to continue down the boulevard in front of the school. I understand across the street is the city of, and so there's some challenges there, but we can probably overcome them. We can work with them. Our side all the way down, we should be spreading out that streetscaping and landscaping so that, it raises housing values, it raises business profiles and et cetera. So I think, to reiterate, the infrastructure, working with private capital and developers to try to bring in some kind of new businesses into Crafton, and to, create maybe a tri-borough kind of thing that we can, a quasi-government body to try to at least push the conversation forward so that we can get out in front of those issues. And then, I'd still like to see a business development corporation in this town. I think it's critical. We have legacy buildings that may or may not ever be utilized again in the same way. It would be amazing to have something that we could have members of our community on a board where they could then be the facilitator between the people who are looking to sell and the people looking to buy. Other communities have done it. Either whether we actually are able to complete that objective, or at least, is yet to be seen, but at least we should be having the conversation. Sorry.
Any other questions? Yes, I have. What skills do you bring to the council? You've been on it before, obviously, so.
Yeah, I mean, I understand this is, being an elected official is a volunteer gig in a lot of ways. People on the outside see us as politicians, but we may not actually be that type of thing. So I think that I understand exactly how to work behind the scenes to build a consensus. I've done the committee work. I've interacted with members of the community. I've stood up here. I've been on the dais. So I think, the communication skills I can bring, the experience skills I have, and just understanding exactly the lane that we actually are in. There's a certain amount of things we can do within our budget. There's a certain amount of time to vision those things out. Rome wasn't built in a day, but what we do now in 2023, we might be able to see the fruits of our labor in 2027. So, I mean, I understand it's like a ship that you're driving, that you have to, when you turn the wheel, it turns kind of slow, to make a metaphor. But yeah, I think that experience and communicative and the work I've done behind the scenes, I understand how to do it.
And why come back?
Great question. I think there's still a lot left in my tank. I mean, not to be kind of corny, but I feel that way. I like to see the narrative, the story completed. I understand each council has different priorities. This council's priorities will be different than the other councils and the ones that serve before me and the ones that might come after us. So I want to see this council's vision go as far as it can go. And within the greater framework of our comprehensive plan of the work we do on the rec boards and the planning commissions and with the DCED, take all of those things and distill them and keep moving it forward. And of course, we're going to have certain side quests that we're going to have to do, but the main story is going to keep going. And so I want to see that continue.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you
Kraus.
for my time. Thank you for your time.
All right, so I don't believe Mr. Drew has joined us. Nope. Okay. All right, so with no objections, accept the nominations of Henry, Pokalnik, Drew, and Kraus for the vacated Borough Council seat and a roll call vote of council by candidate last name. So the point now is that we will go through each of, and I think it's based on where we left off before, so we aren't going in alphabetical order because we'll go in the order that where we left off to keep it fair. And then this would be for the council person's last name. So again, we've just went through those, so you would vote for that person, and they have to get a majority vote. So they have to get 4 votes for us to go forward. Then there's some other things that happen if they don't. Mr. Sample. Or, yeah.
Mr. Marks. So I need the last name of the candidate you would want to.
Kraus.
Mr. Radilla.
Polkownik,
Ms. Bollenbacher. Mr. Chandler.
Polkownik.
Ms. Compatello.
Kraus.
And Mr. Oliverio.
Pokalnik.
Okay, Mrs. Polkownik, I'm sorry. We're gonna work on that, Jim. It received 4 votes.
All right, so a motion to adopt resolution 2023-001, appointing Ms. Pokalnik to Crafton Borough Council to fill the vacancy resulting from the resignation of Philip Lavasser, which expires on December 31st, 2023. We need a motion.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Chandler seconds, Mr. Radilla. Any discussion? All in favor? Or I guess, yes, for this motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 1 opposition, motion passes. So at this time, can we confirm that Ms. Pokalnik has done the affidavit for residency?
Do you have it with you tonight?
So we cannot swear her in right at this point. So we would need that affidavit. And then Mayor Perry can meet with you to swear you in for that. So, all right. Community announcements.
Can we have any other comment
What's that?
before we proceed off this topic?
Yeah.
I would like to thank everyone who came and who did put in their application and who came. Some of you came twice. We had some really good candidates, and I appreciate everyone's interest in serving on council and encourage all of you to continue doing that in the future. Some seats will become open again, as well as a lot of our boards and commissions do a lot of the work that some of you have referenced. And I just wanted to close on that by thanking those of you who put your names in.
Okay. All right, so our next council meeting is Thursday, January 26th at 7:15. The Crafton Community Information Fair is Saturday, June 14th. We've referenced this in some conversations here. That is this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2. It is at the new Fig Tree Coffee, which used to be Capretti and Company, which was a hair salon. It will be a coffee shop and eventually a snacks and sandwiches. It's at 1931 Crafton Boulevard, right where we have done all of our projects, very close to the elementary school. It's an open house format from 10 to 2. You can learn about borough resources, local businesses, spending time. Some council members will be there, the fire department, library. There's going to be lots of resources there. It's a free event. Area Agency on Aging, the Boy Scouts. So we encourage residents to come and circulate between 10 and 2. All right, public comment at this, and for anything else from council members, any other items? Okay. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue. Only residents, taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please state your name and physical address for the record. And anybody here can just raise your hand. Anybody online, same thing. All right. Anybody doesn't have anything, the meeting is adjourned. We do have an executive session after this meeting, as Mr. Corbel had mentioned, to discuss a personnel matter. Thank you, everyone.